What is up, everybody? Happy Friday. John, happy Friday, buddy.
Man, happy Friday. You excited for our last show of the week?
I'm stoked.
I am not. I'm kind of sad we're not going to be doing this again until Monday night.
Well, we have the mock draft on Sunday.
We do.
Or actually, are you going to be a part of it?
I possibly will. I might be able to tune in just as someone drafting. I will be driving home at this time, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully I can participate.
Dope.
I'll do what I can.
Happy Friday again, everybody. I'm Michael. This is John again.
I'm John.
Yeah. Welcome to the Fantasy Tap. We appreciate you guys tuning in. This week has been an awesome week for us. Our first week of podcasting. How did it go, John? How do you think it went?
I think it went pretty well. I was honestly really surprised by the amount of support we've got from friends, family, and anyone else that seemed to have found us. We have people from around the country that we were really surprised to see little heat map pop up and see some crazy states. We even found someone in France, so if we're officially international. So so happy everyone's here, and thank you for giving us a chance.
I appreciate it, even though we have bad English.
Yeah, we were told that we may not have the best grammar
multiple times,
and apparently we need to clear the air here.
We are the only beneficiaries of that knowledge. Because I used it right that time.
That is the proper way. We were told by a handful of people that benefactor was not the correct word, and that we should have used beneficiary. So we apologize for our grammatical errors, but this is not a grammatical podcast. This is a fantasy football podcast mixed with a small little bit of beer review. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and don't take any of our English language advice. Yeah, we're bad on that. But we have a packed show today for you all. We've got our first segment that we've ever done, like little special segment, I guess you could call it.
Something we're going to be seeing probably here and there, something we're going to return to, but the main idea is going to stay the same.
Yeah. So, and we'll get a little backstory in real quick. The reason why John and I got into podcasting is because
the great conversation.
We like to argue.
We do.
We argue quite a bit, so much so our significant others tell us to separate every once in a while. Or actually, sometimes they'll just walk out the room.
They'll leave the room. So
the first time it happened, it was over Frank Gore, the future Hall of Famer. Frank Gore.
I concede now. It's been a year almost since this conversation. All right, let's not get there yet. We'll talk about this one day. But no, the whole reason we really got into podcasting, where we realized that we had a good flow and that we actually had something that people might be interested in listening to, was we had a conversation whether or not Frank Gore would be a Hall of Famer just based off of his legacy. And that whole conversation took place in about 8 hours in a bar in Pittsburgh, when we were sitting there for the Dolphins-Steelers game this year and watching all the Sunday games, with the Dolphins game being a Monday night game.
Gambling our money away. Because it's legal there.
It is.
First time I ever gambled.
It's a great thing.
First time John ever lost it all.
I left with positive money. $3 positive is still positive.
Hey. But let's get into the show itinerary for you today. We've got that, like I said, that first segment. We're going to call it Will They, Won't They? After that, we're going to be talking about year 2 wide receivers.
Prime for either a breakout year or someone who, might be really hot because they finished hot last season that's not actually going to be too hot.
A lot of hots. Drop it like it's hot.
Someone's going to pop, lock, and drop it later for you, and we're going to see who it is.
Oh, you want to get into that right now?
Yeah, let's jump into it.
All right, we're going to, as John said, we're going to pop, lock, and drop it into Drew Lock.
I think he is a lock for at least quarterback 15 this season coming into the 2020.
And I say that is false.
Where do you see him finishing, roughly?
Where he's being drafted, around that QB 22, but up to QB 18 maybe. Because he does have all those weapons around him, I think that's going to benefit him a lot. But I just see it's nothing against him, but more so I see other quarterbacks doing better. Give me your beef. Let's hear it. Let me see why, or tell me why you think he'll be a top 15 quarterback.
So obviously, one of the main things that he's coming into this season is they have a new offensive coordinator in Pat Shurmur, who's I see the smile on your face. He's not a man that's an obvious, oh, wow, look at this guy. He's a great offensive coordinator. But he's someone who's been around the league for a little bit of time. And he's creating a whole system with so many new weapons just on their offensive side between the addition of Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. You're coming with Melvin Gordon fresh to the team.
You got Cortland Sutton.
Oh, those are only the new guys.
Oh.
You already have Noah Fant, Phillip Lindsay, and Cortland Sutton there. So being able to come into a team and to develop a system based around who your personnel is going to be, and not coming into into the season as week 13 as the new starting quarterback in a system where a team's already ready to end the season because they've lost so much already. But yet he still comes in and wins 4 out of 5 games, only losing to the Super Bowl champions.
But what does that translate into fantasy? Why is he going to finish top 15?
Again, out of working with the Joe Flacco system that was meant for Joe Flacco, you have a quarterback with a completely different skill set who's got the deep arm ball of someone like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. He's got the arm strength. And it was shown last season, especially during Houston. And that was week 14, I believe, off the top of my head. But the man's good. And you've got the talent between Jerry Jeudy coming into the offense as someone who is arguably one of the best receivers coming in between CeeDee Lamb and Henry Ruggs. The receiver class was really good this season.
It was great. One of the best since the OBJ Mike Evans
absolutely
draft.
And then you'll see as you'll see a little bit later, last year's receivers class had not near as much talent come in, but yet you'll see they turned out to be really remarkable rookie receivers in the league, with a lot of rookie receivers finishing in that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 category. And as a rookie, that's pretty great. 48 players in that flex category, and for rookies to come in and take spots from veterans on limited targets and not starting multiple games.
Yeah, listen, my thing against Drew Lock though, and like I said earlier, it's nothing against him. It's who's ahead of him. All right, so let me run down real quick the top 15 from last year. Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Kirk Cousins. So obviously there's one quarterback in there that has to be replaced because Drew Lock's not beaten any of those guys this year, barring injury.
Yeah, we can go over this really quickly. So first off, Phillip Rivers is going to a completely new offense. We have no idea what he's going to do. He's someone who's supposed to be a sensational talent.
I didn't name Phillip Rivers.
Who do you have as 15?
15's Kirk Cousins. 4-point passing touchdown.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm looking at 6 point.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be a big difference there.
Yeah, because there's no way he's getting at 6 point either.
Really, you don't. In his 5 games last season, he threw 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, but that's a super small sample size, and again,
it's a small sample size where he's running out of an offense that's already had their season determined. They weren't winning a Super Bowl. They barely even at week 13 had a chance of even making the playoffs. He came in and won 4 games. I'm not saying they weren't playing to win. They weren't playing to win the Super Bowl at that point. They had no hopes of coming in and winning a Super Bowl at week 13. This year he's going to be starting a whole system built around him where he's going to have a coach and an offensive coordinator who saw what he could do in those 5 games and say, okay, well, you do this well and you do this well. You don't seem to do this very well, so we're going to stop having you do this. We're going to take that arm and put it in, just lob the ball downfield to KJ Hamler, who's your Walmart version of Tyreek Hill.
My thing, like I said, he's not finishing ahead of any of those guys, and you're going to replace Jameis Winston with Drew Brees this year because he wasn't in the top 15 last year. Do you know when the last time Drew Brees wasn't in the top 15?
Drew Brees didn't play a whole season last year, so season.
He played 6 games. He didn't play 6 games. He played 10.
He didn't play a whole season last year. That's what I said.
Oh, I thought you said he didn't play any of the season.
He didn't play a whole season last year.
Right.
He didn't play a complete season last year.
Correct. That is correct.
And so, yeah, it's really possible on why he didn't finish top 15. I mean, realistically, Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks in the league still. So,
right.
I mean,
so I'm saying to say that, you replace Jameis Winston with Drew Brees, and that's your top 15.
You have a huge possibility of Jared Goff falling off.
No.
You don't think it's possible Jared Goff can fall out of the top 15?
No.
On a bad year?
Mm-mm. Under Drew Lock, no.
You don't think it's at all possible that Drew Lock could have a better season than Jared Goff does this year?
No.
With a terrible offensive line, with a loss of Brandon Cooks,
who didn't play the majority of the time anyway,
but even produced when he was in, gave him an open target.
But they replaced that with Van Jefferson.
You have a rookie who's coming in. I mean, you want to say that you don't know if Judy and Hamler are going to be.
Well, I didn't say that. I said that Broncos have a ton of talent. I just don't think that talent. I think the weakest link in that whole offense is Drew Lock.
And what makes you think he's a weak link? What has he shown? What has he done wrong to make you not think?
There's only been 5 games. Okay, like I said, I think he's going to be a decent quarterback, but fantasy-wise, my gut's telling me no. We haven't seen that much. And I don't see him finishing in front of any of those quarterbacks I just stated. I don't even see him finishing in front of Ryan Tannehill, who I didn't name, or Baker Mayfield this year, who I didn't name. So that bumps him out.
I just think it's kind of crazy. You don't think that someone who put himself in an opportunity within 4 games against teams that had pretty good defenses. I mean, he came in and played against the Chargers, who have a great secondary. Yet he came in, balled out, and put up 2 touchdowns, ended up having a game-winning drive, and his first start as an NFL quarterback, as a rookie.
No, I think that's great. I do. I really do. And I think he's going to be a decent quarterback. But I don't think that he's going to be a top 15 fantasy football quarterback this year. I just don't see him finishing in front of any of those players I named.
So how many passing attempts do you think that he's going to have roughly in the slightest bit of roughness?
So like we were talking about, Pat Shurmur, the last 2 seasons, he threw 607 and 583, I believe.
Okay.
One, you can't put the ball in his hands that much.
Why?
Which is why, because he's not.
He had 1 fumble in those 5 games.
I'm not talking about fumbles.
He only had 3 interceptions in those 5 games. He had 4 turnovers in those 5 games. Mm-hmm. That's less than a turnover a game, but yet you have Kyler Murray, who's a rookie as well, who has,
But he can do it with his legs. Drew Lock can scramble.
Who has a better arm? What position are we talking about? Are we talking about a running back and a receiver, or are we talking about a quarterback?
We're talking about a quarterback.
So we're talking about someone who can actually throw the ball downfield precisely and deeply and well,
right? But
versus someone who can throw very mediocre deep balls, really great medium routes, and pretty okay short routes.
And we're talking
also
fantasy
has the ability
football
to run.
Exactly.
Yes.
So those rushing yards are going to get you more than passing yards.
They will. But Drew Lock even had over 100 rushing yards last year in his 5 games.
Okay, but I'm saying like I said, I'm sticking to my point. I'm not going to get off topic. He's not going to finish in front of any of those top 15 quarterbacks.
Oh, man.
Fantasy football-wise.
I see Drew Lock has the ceiling of a top 8 quarterback this coming up year. I see him absolutely being able to throw 30 touchdowns this upcoming season on his ceiling. Not saying it's a guarantee, not saying that's what I project, but I'm saying
how many touchdowns is he going to throw, you think, this year?
I think
guarantee it right now.
Guarantee in 24. I see him throwing 24 touchdowns this upcoming season.
Okay.
And I think that's a pretty solid baseline. That's something I'm extremely comfortable in saying. That's extremely comfortable in projecting. And I see him throwing over 4,200 yards.
4,200?
Yeah.
No way. If you took his average from last year, I think he was 6.5 attempts, and they're not going to throw the ball 580 times. He's probably going to throw the ball 530 times. They're going to they're not going to – that's around, I believe – let me do my math real quick. I think that's like 3,600 yards.
If he got 550 attempts at 6 yards a pop, and that's being a conservative, hey, that's all he got in his 5 starts. You're taking his 5 start sample size and using that as his career average, which is true to say. It's true to say. But again, it's such a small sample size. There's no way to say that that's who it's going to be. When he had, I'm going to give it to him, his worst game, he threw 208 yards at a 45% completion rate against a Super Bowl winning defense.
Well, their defense wasn't that good, but they were all right. The offense. The thing is,
you can't say their defense wasn't great.
Well, it wasn't great.
So, and then they also did spend They also did, move up from the number 18 offensive line last year to the number 14 this year.
Projected,
absolutely projected. They were projected 18 last year. They were projected 14 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what they finished at last year, but the only real question mark on and this is all PFF stats. The only real question mark on based off the graded value of their offensive line is their 3rd round draft pick. That's possibly a starting center in Cushenberry. The rest of their line graded out at over a 75% or higher. At least on pass blocking.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be a bad quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a bad quarterback. Fantasy-wise, I don't see him finishing higher than 18.
I see his lowest being 22.
You just said his 15?
His lowest, absolute lowest, if he has a bad season on himself.
If he has a bad season, he's finished out of the top 24.
They have no one behind him. That they're ready to start or even play. So he could have 4 bad games.
Saying if he has a bad year, he will finish out of the top 24 quarterbacks. It's starting every game.
No, I'm saying even him, what we're going to consider a bad year is what I think everyone has him projected at landing at that 24 spot. I think that's a bad season for him. He's a baller. He's
out.
He's got the swag.
He's out. He does have the swag. I'm not going to lie about that.
And that's something that really matters because that carries attitude to the rest of your team. That kind of just keeps the hype going. We're talking fantasy football, John. We're not talking about wins. Oh, the hype and the swag go when your receivers are happy on this. They're sitting there. They're all like, "Oh, my boy's got me," ready to take off and burn this corner because you're going to be super happy once you burn this corner and catch a ball in the end zone because this guy just bombed it to you 60 yards.
He's not finishing in front of any of those quarterbacks that I named.
Book it.
All right. Well, that was a long one. Let's move on to Jamison Crowder. We got to do this quick. Who do you got?
Where do you got Jamison Crowder?
Finishing. Around. So last year he finished wide receiver 20. I think he'll finish
26.
Or yeah, I'm sorry. What? Are you sure? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So wide receiver 26 wide receiver 26. I think he's going to be just over wide receiver 24, around low end wide receiver 2. You know why?
Why is that?
Because I said so. No, because Sam Darnold. I know what you're going to say. Oh, they brought in Rashad Perryman. Denzel Mims is in the offense. Deep bombs. They're going to take the targets. Blah, blah. No. Both of those guys are further down. They're stretching the field out, okay? Sam Darnold's deep ball completion percentage for 2018 and 2019. 2019, 27.3. He ranked 32nd in the league. 2018, he had a better year, 26.8%, which ranked 30th. Okay? Jamison Crowder's lining up in the slot. And that's where Sam Darnold is gonna throw the ball. He was the only wide receiver last year, or actually target for Sam Darnold, that had over 100 targets last year. And it's gonna happen again.
They had no other talented receivers, and Quincy Enunwa got hurt after a couple weeks last year.
Robbie Anderson's a talented receiver.
Robbie Anderson didn't want to be on the team last year.
So? He's still a talented receiver.
He's talented. He didn't want to play. He didn't play every game last year.
I just don't. Okay, but all right, give me your. Why do you think that?
I think the only reason that Jamison Crowder has been anywhere near relevant in the past 3 years is mainly because of lack of talent at the Jets wide receiver position.
He was only on the Jets last year. Before that, he was with Washington.
Again, even worse. He's only been relevant due to a lack of talent on the wide receiver, the receivers that he's up against. I'm not saying he's not a talented player, and that he's not someone that can catch that can be a great receiver, but he's definitely someone who's a mediocre receiver that can produce with a lot of targets. I know he's been close to 100 target. He's had over 100 targets for 3 years with at least 99 targets another year. So he's someone who sees a lot of looks, gets the ball a lot, but yet is only finished as the top 28 receiver twice. Every other time he's been the low 30s.
Right, but he's also, Chris Herndon can't stay healthy. If he's
Herndon's only had 2 seasons.
Right, but he can't stay healthy. And they brought in 2 receivers who are going to stretch the field. Denzel Mims will be there in the future, but with all the coronavirus, they're not getting the camp time. And aside from...
When your quarterback's trash, you don't need camp time. You need coach time. You just need the coach to tell you where you need to run the route.
Right. All he's going to do is throw the ball 7 yards down the field. His average target depth is 8.8 yards. And that's exactly where Jamison Crowder's going to be running.
But Denzel Mims' average target in college was 11.1 yards.
Okay.
And when you have Sam Darnold dumping off the ball to Le'Veon Bell 80 times a season in that...
80 times a season? He didn't do it 80 times.
60 times. How many receptions did Le'Veon have last year?
I don't know. Okay. He didn't dump the ball off to Le'Veon Bell 80 times
when you have a quarterback who's dumping off the ball to a running back that's taking it for 2 yards, and you have your average depth of target going from the 11 mark down to the 8 because of those short passes, because it is an average, you're going to find that the majority of your passes that are ending up in that past 8 mark are going to 10 to 11. You're going to find that the target range that you're looking for someone who sees ghosts out in the backfield is going to be just behind that linebacker, just in front of those safeties at the 11-yard mark.
I'm just saying, Jamison Crowder is going to get over 100 targets, and he's going to do what he did last year.
Jamison Crowder is going to regress from last season due to a more opportunity at other receivers, being that Darnold's never thrown for over 500 attempts in a season.
Mm-hmm.
Darnold's never had a second-round receiver come through that's a baller. Denzel Mims is getting ready to come in here, take over the big body red zone targets. He's going to take a majority of Jamison Crowder's red zone targets away. They haven't had many big-bodied receivers that can go into the end zone when they're in the red zone.
But that's not where he's going to make his money. He's going to make his money on the receptions. In a PPR league, he's going to make his money on the receptions.
But when you only have a quarterback that's throwing 411 to 430 times a year, you're going to lose those receptions when you have more competent receivers in that receiving core. And because those receivers who are coming in yes, they're definitely people that can excel in that deep route, but they're not people that only excel in that deep route. They're not people that can't come in under that in route or that slant route and take it for 8 yards.
Right, but they're not going to be playing in the slot every time like Jamison Crowder. They're going to be running those deeper routes. They will be, running the slants, running the unders every once in a while. But last year, Jamison Crowder ran out of the slot 658 times.
Oh, he's primarily going to be lining up in the slot with Perryman lining up as the primary outside receiver, at least until the season continues. But that's not to say that Crowder's going to end up and receive as much receptions in that 100 target range, just due to the fact that he's lined up in that position. If you only have 400 attempts and the guy lined up there 600 times,
he had over 120 targets last year.
He had 100. Their receiving core was stricken by injury plagues.
Stricken.
That's
English.
Oh, we're going grammatically correct today. But they had an injury plague receiver core last year, and the only consistent player that was there week after week with only a couple, not injured, but slow weeks due to some wear and tear, was Jamison Crowder.
You know, Jamison Crowder didn't even lead the receivers in snaps last year.
Who led the?
Robbie Anderson.
But that's not even who led them in targets.
Jamison.
Okay.
Right, but you're saying that Robbie Anderson wasn't there.
Robbie Anderson didn't produce last season.
Just because he didn't produce doesn't mean he wasn't there.
He didn't produce because he didn't get the targets because Jamison Crowder got them as someone who the team wasn't even looking at.
Do you know how many snaps Robbie Anderson played more than Robbie Anderson played 944 snaps last year.
Okay.
Jamison Crowder 814, over 100 less snaps, and he had 122 targets.
Again, it doesn't mean it for doesn't do it for me here. You have someone who I don't see Robbie Anderson as someone that's even going into Carolina this season coming up, who's going to be taking targets away from any of the receivers that we were high on last season. DJ Moore is not losing anything by Robbie Anderson being there. The same way that Jamison Crowder didn't get any hit by Robbie Anderson. DJ Moore is playing from the slot.
Right, but Robbie Anderson and Brashad Perriman are very similar receivers in the fact that they're field stretchers.
The addition of other Denzel Mims is there as well. You have Herndon coming in who missed most of the season not last year, injured, who's still going to be coming in healthy coming up. He's got a shitty quarterback back there.
Oh man. All right. Well, yeah, I don't think Sam Darnold's very good either. Don't worry. Yeah. But before we get off and keep going, because like I said last time, it lasted for 8 hours. Will Drew Lock finish as a top 15 quarterback? You let us know. And will Jamison Crowder finish as a top 24 wide receiver? Let us know. Let John know I am right.
Yeah, tell me I'm wrong. But if you're going to come and tell me why I'm wrong, at least tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't just say
just like
wrong.
I did.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to year 2 wide receivers. John, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so, first receiver that we're going to be talking about today is the receiver that ended up with the best standard ranking out of any rookie receivers last season, and that's A.J. Brown, someone who's going super hot in drafts this upcoming this draft season right now. He's Ryan Tannehill's number 1 target. Miss Ryan Tannehill being playing for the Dolphins. It was terrible to watch him play for us, but it's even worse watching him play for other people and actually playing good finally. So last year, A.J. Brown went in a standard league ADP, or right now he's going ADP 35, which is the 13th receiver off the board. And in a PPR format, he's going ADP 44, which would make him the 17th receiver. What do you think about that?
I think I'm drafting him. I mean, the only thing that scares me is can he be consistent? I mean, the last 6 weeks last year, he scored less than 14.3 points one time. So every other time he was balling. However, it wasn't against the best teams, I believe. Let me see. Let me pull it up here. I believe he was playing defenses worse than 20th or ranked 20th or worst against a wide receiver. So his numbers there are kind of a little inflated, and that's the only thing that scares me. However, I do think that with Derrick Henry there obviously Ryan Tannehill is very good at the play action pass. Very
he
good.
Excels at it.
And A.J. Brown is going to benefit from that. He's going to be the beneficiary. Biggest beneficiary.
There you go.
There we go. So
not a benefactor.
No. And after Marcus Mariota was benched last year, A.J. Brown's, and it's this stat kind of it was the first 5 games of A.J. Brown's career, so it's hard to take this stat and say much of it. But after Tannehill took over, he was targeting A.J. Brown more than Mariota was. You could see a big uptick, or a decent uptick in A.J. Brown's stats after Tannehill took over. And was that because A.J. Brown was getting better in the offense? Was it not? I obviously we can't say. But Ryan Tannehill, if you watched him in Miami, if you watched him last year, he plays, like I said, he plays the play action well, and I just think that those long balls are going to, and those deeper routes are going to he'll be open, and that's where A.J. Brown's going to benefit.
I mean, absolutely. A.J. Brown's someone who's going to be seeing a lot of opportunity in this upcoming season. He's made a clear name for himself on that Tennessee offense with Ryan Tannehill really taking the reins. He's coming back to a quarterback who's already made that connection with him. And again, as us being Dolphins fan, we've watched Tannehill for a while, year after year, waiting for him to do something great like he's done for Tennessee, hopefully for us. But something I noticed watching him for so many years was he really does make connections with his receivers to where he will throw it to someone who he trusts will catch it and make something happen. It seemed like he didn't really have that connection with the Devontae Parker when he was in Miami, which is why I feel like we had kind of had a Devontae Parker breakout this season when he's got a different quarterback. And it's not to say that neither of them is great at their position. It's just to say their connection wasn't there. And so that's why you had the emergence of Albert Wilson and Jakeem Grant come out while Devontae Parker's kind of that big question mark for us. But coming into Tennessee Titans, I mean, their offensive line's super strong. You've got the quarterback returning. Derrick Henry's tagged, so he's going to be taking a lot of pressure off the passing game. Defenses have to pay attention to what he's doing.
Actually, they re-signed him 4 years.
I'm sorry. Yeah, he got re-signed. I didn't mean to say tagged. But he got re-signed, so that means that he's staying there. Defenses need to start understanding when they're playing the Titans. That's something they need to look out for, is that big monster running through the line. And so that's going to take a lot of pressure off your passing defense and give A.J. Brown some more opportunity. And what's something that's really nice to see is that even in Tennessee is they had Corey Davis there as a first-round receiver for years. And he's someone that destroyed a lot of people's fantasy rosters year after year, myself included. He was the first rookie that I remember ever taking and being like, wow, I'm so excited to see what this guy does, only for it to smack me in the face.
Yeah.
So you can see that the emergence of A.J. Brown over receivers who had all hype coming into there, it means that he's got some sort of talent behind him that everyone's really excited to see, and hopefully that quarterback-receiver connection continues.
One other awesome little stat I want to bring up is that his fantasy points per target was 2.58, which is number 2 in the league last year.
Wow.
So, I mean, I definitely think if you
should
have...
give him the ball more.
Yeah, yeah, they should, right? If you have the chance to go out and get him, do it, because he's going to have a great year. I mean, I really do. I really think that he will. Like I said, our projections will be coming out in about a week or so. So at that point, we'll be able to kind of let you know where we think he's going to go. But John, real quick, A.J. Brown or Calvin Ridley? Ooh, that's a hard one.
Ooh, that is really hard.
Yeah, they're going right now in a standard league. A.J. Brown is going as the wide receiver 13, and Calvin Ridley's going as the wide receiver 15.
So, personally, as much of a Julio fan as I am, I think Calvin Ridley's primed to be really close to, if not finally surpassing, the production of Julio Jones. I think that he's got enough talent. I don't think he's more talented than Julio, but just the offense that he's in just opens up so much opportunity for him to produce that I think I'd take Calvin Ridley in this situation.
Me too.
I would take Calvin Ridley. I would take the wide receiver 2 on the Falcons more than I would take the wide receiver 1 on the Titans.
A.J. Brown or T.Y. Hilton?
A.J. Brown.
Yep.
The injury concerns of T.Y. Hilton kill me.
Yep. I agree there. Just want to throw those out there and see, because they're both T.Y. Hilton's a wide receiver 14 off the board, so right behind A.J. Brown. But let's move to the next one, Terry McLaurin. Scary Terry. I have drafted him in almost every dynasty league I was in last year, and I love it. It was great.
Is all I heard after week 1 last season was, Terry was my sleeper last year.
Yep.
Oh, Terry was my sleeper last year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Terry was a sleeper last year, in case anyone didn't hear me the first 3 times.
Yep. I said that.
Yeah. So what made you think that he was going to be a sleeper for anyone that might be looking into this current draft class?
Well, he runs his routes great. being an Ohio State fan, I saw him week in and week out. I saw him run his routes, and I have there's a couple other receivers out there, all from Ohio State this year, that I'm kind of hiding. But KJ Hill, Chargers. But Terry is just a great route runner. I really think that he if his quarterback can get it right, as long as Dwayne Haskins can be a decent quarterback, can get him the ball, because when Dwayne Haskins was in last year, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. He only had Terry McLaurin only had 2 games over 10 points in the last 8 games, I believe, or six games. I know he was injured. He was dealing with some injuries, but Dwayne Haskins has to get it together in order for Terry to really take off and really fulfill his fantasy potential.
So I really like Terry. I think he's a great receiver, and I think he's someone who's going to be doing really big things in the NFL in the future. But something that does scare me was he was someone that was considered a sleeper by a lot of people, and a lot of people took him up early as like, oh wow, this is the guy. This is the receiver out of this draft class.
Are you
that's
the guy?
Be winning this. No, I'm definitely not. But this is the receiver out of this draft class that's going to be winning people leagues. And I think part of the reason that everyone got on the hype train early with him was because week 1 and 2 were some of his best weeks of the season. I mean, realistically, he only had 5 games this season where he scored over 10 points fantasy and standard scoring. And you're telling me you're taking a receiver who's only putting up 10 plus points a game 5 times a year early in the 3rd round, 4th round?
I think I'm staying away from Terry in redraft this year. I mean, I think that he's a great receiver, but I just don't. My trust isn't in, or my lack of trust isn't in Terry. It's in Dwayne Haskins.
Same, and that's another reason that's part of the reason I assume that his ADP is as low as it is because a lot of people understand that their quarterback situation isn't really the greatest. No one really knows what Dwayne Haskins is going to be doing this year. A lot of people are on the hype train. A lot of people are on the get rid of him, drop him train. Today, the Redskins actually announced that they were going to be going without logos on their helmets and be doing numbers in gold. And something peculiar about that was when they decided to post that photo, it was 2 pictures of Dwayne Haskins. Which lets you know that at least the entire front office and the organization is behind him.
Yep.
So maybe they saw just enough from the film and just enough from his conversations with the coaching staff and Ron Rivera that they think they can turn him into, a really good quarterback and possibly maybe make Terry a good receiver. I just have a lot of risk in him.
Well, they're not going to make Terry a great receiver. He's a great receiver.
A great fantasy receiver because he's already a great NFL receiver. He's shown that he's got the skills and that he can get open. He can break away from elite defenders. But fantasy-wise, he's a hot name because he had a couple breakout weeks when other big-name receivers didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's kind of a question mark. He's kind of the risk radar for me because I'm not sure. I don't know where he's going to finish.
Yeah, he is difficult.
How many good weeks does he have?
Yeah. All right, so Terry McLaurin or Juju Smith-Schuster?
I'm taking Juju.
Terry McLaurin or DJ Moore?
I'm taking DJ Moore.
All right. Well, that was Juju is the 24 and Terry's the 26. DJ Moore is the 27. All in standard leagues. You want to move to the next one?
Yeah. So next one, we've got Mr. Hollywood himself. We've got Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown. Right now he's being drafted standard at ADP number 57, which would make him the wide receiver 25 off the board. And in PPR leagues, he's averaging draft pick at 65, which makes him wide receiver 28. Again, someone who I personally think is way too hot and cold for me. He only had a handful of games last season where he was, by the end of the game, you can see those point totals were actually usable and someone you'd want to have played. And even with the offseason not being as hot as it could have been, with as much training he could have been with his quarterback Lamar, I don't see him being a secure enough receiver for me to be picking up at, ADP 57 in a standard league. He's boomer bust. Maybe be a little bit more hot on him if it was a best ball league. But
yeah, and that's actually, I had that written down on my notes. If I'm drafting in a best ball league today, I'm taking Marquise. When he's available. Other than that, for redraft, I'm staying away from him because he, like you said, he's just so hot and cold. A couple quick, we'll get through this one, but a couple quick comparisons. Or who would you take? Devontae Parker or Marquise Brown this year?
I'd probably take Marquise Brown just because he's still slotted for that number one receiver role on the Ravens. They invested in the receivers in the draft, but not too heavily. And his biggest competitions is Mark Andrews. Devontae Parker has a couple mouths to feed in that offense between Preston and Jordan Howard / Matt Breida.
And Gesicki. Yeah, no, I mean, if Devontae comes out and does what he did last year, then obviously I would lean that way. But I think I would lean Marquise, especially when you're drafting around that position. You're gonna have your first two. You're gonna have your first two wide receivers. By the time Marquise Brown pops up, I mean, PPR ADP 65, like we said, and standard 57. I just think that you'll have them. So he really is going to be an upside guy. If you're going between Devontae Parker or Marquise, I think I'll lean towards Marquise just because of Devontae's injury risk. And then Michael Gallup or Marquise. Shout out Uncle Chris.
I think I'm gonna have to take Marquise Brown just because the upside's there. Michael Gallup's upside's really limited by the fact that you have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb there. Even though he might have a good game here and there where he could potentially put up 25 points as a receiver in a PPR league, he's not going to be consistently doing that with the amount of talent the Cowboys have at the receiving core. It's going to be some receivers are going to ball, the other ones are not. And you do not want to be playing that guessing game like some people were last season.
Michael Gallup will stay consistent.
Do you think he's consistently putting up high points?
No. But he's a good wide receiver too to have. Wide receiver 2. Yeah.
3 to flex.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, originally that was going to be our will they, won't they, but as John was looking into it, he kind of turned to the dark side.
I thought I hated Michael Gallup a little bit more than I did, and I guess I just really was hoping CD was going to come in and take over some spots. But the more I looked into it, and the more I looked at where they're lining up, how their quarterbacks are looking, including Andy Dalton, I see Michael Gallup doing better than CD with Andy Dalton as quarterback as well, and it kind of hurt my heart. Not that I have anything against Michael Gallup; he's the number one receiver and 10 other teams in the NFL. So,
all right. So we don't take up too much time. Give me the rundown on DK Metcalf.
All right, quick little rundown on DK Metcalf. He's a huge body. He's someone who Russell Wilson can throw the ball to, and a large majority of the time he's coming down with it. He's quick off the line, and he's explosive as hell. Last year he did 800 yards for 7 touchdowns as a rookie with only 58 catches.
Yeah, with Tyler Lockett there, Tyler Lockett was lining up in the slots. He lined up in the slot 736 times. And then DK, which was the most, that he's a primary slot receiver. DK on the outside at 681. I think that DK is a solid grab at the ADP 32. Or the wide receiver 12 in a standard league.
Yeah, so that would make him the low-end wide receiver one. I think it's absolutely solid spot for him.
Spot on.
Yeah, and I think him and Lockett make up a great combination of 2 wide receivers that can both produce wide receiver 1 numbers week by week.
For sure. 100% agree. DK, grab him. Darius Slayton, what are your thoughts on him?
I think Darius Slayton's actually somewhat of a sleeper. You know, like I said, there's receivers in this that we're going to be going over that surprised me, and he's the first one that the main one that I was like, wow, you know what? Someone I nearly counted out is actually put up great numbers. If he would have played all 16 games last year, he was on pace to finish as the wide receiver 29 in a PPR league, and his real finish was at 37, which, I mean, it's a wide receiver, just under a wide receiver 3 in a 12-man league, and you're getting the third receiver on the Giants offense under Daniel Jones / Eli Manning last year. Mm-hmm. You've got Daniel Jones entering a full season, hopefully no injuries. You know, you can never predict an injury. But you've got Daniel Jones coming into a full season and a receiver who hopefully, again, can play all 16. He can produce. He's someone that's going to be getting that better QB receiver, that drive, and he's someone that's going to be a sleeper in your leagues. Right now he's going ADP 101 in standard and 105 in PPR, which means you're picking him up at the late to early 4th round.
Yeah, and I know, like you said, we can't predict injuries, but you know, Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate have, especially Sterling Shepard. You know, he can't seem to stay healthy, or Evan Ingram. So last year he missed 6 games. Sterling Shepard did, and before that, he's always popping up on the injury list.
Yes.
So I really do think, I traded him away. Unfortunately, Darius Slayton. Before I did all this research, before we started this, I'm kind of upset about it now.
It happens. This is why we're doing this, so we can get better and make these people better too.
Yep. So, but yeah, I definitely think that he can be a solid wide receiver, like you said, flex player. Potentially, depending on what happens with the rest of his team, if there's any injuries and whatnot. Maybe he can bump up to that wide receiver 2. I think that's his ceiling, a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's someone you're grabbing after your wide receiver 3. He's the wide receiver 42 and 41 off the board in standard and PPR respectively.
Yep.
So, you've got someone that you're grabbing in the late 3rd. So you're not expecting him to be your wide receiver 1. You're not expecting the world out of the man. And he's into that sophomore season where he's going to break out.
Yep.
Along with Daniel Jones, my late round quarterback sleeper.
Yeah.
It's part of the reason. They have a great connection. Another
one that I want to get to is Deebo Samuel.
So we're just going to touch on this quickly because we did bring him up on Thursday's episode. So he's someone last year that went right now he's going ADP 44, which makes him the wide receiver 17 in a standard league, and ADP 87, which would make him the wide receiver 35 in a PPR league. He has the possibility still of missing maybe week 1, possibly week 2. Still haven't heard much about his injury since the original news has come out and seen how he's feeling. But how do you think about him?
We're talking about Deebo?
We're talking about Deebo.
Okay, just making sure. I was looking at my notes and I saw Deontay, so I was like, oh. Yeah. So Deebo, I'm worried about him. First couple weeks, I don't think he'll be there. My only concern is, and like I said last time, is re-injury, and that scares me a little bit. They had Trent Taylor go through the same thing. I've said that a couple times, but that's my concern is re-injury risk. If he was healthy, he has dealt with injuries in college. He did miss a pretty good amount of games then as well. So re-injury is the only worry. If he was healthy, and if hopefully if he can get healthy prior to the beginning of the season, and really perform, his upside for me is a low end wide receiver 1, maybe middle of the pack wide receiver 1. Just because the only other receiver on that team, or really a tight end, is George Kittle. They don't throw the ball too much.
What about Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah, not this year. Not this year. We'll talk about him next year on the year 2 wide receiver outlooks.
Okay. Now, so I like Deebo. Watching his games, he's a great receiver. He gets off the ball really quickly.
He can run the ball too.
He can, and that's actually my issue with him.
Yeah.
So I feel like his fantasy finish last year was kind of inflated. On 14 carries as a wide receiver, he got 159 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's giving you, in a 6-point touchdown, it's giving you like 30-plus points to add to his total. That's really not that repeatable and not something you can guarantee. You can't guarantee that he's going to be putting up 10-plus yards a carry and getting you a touchdown on little over 20% of his carries. It's not repeatable. That's not something you can expect from him.
But in an offense like that, where the majority of what they do is run the ball, it's always nice that your receiver runs the ball.
It's nice that he does it because a lot of receivers will run the ball. There's a lot of receivers out in the stat line out there that right now, if you look at their stat lines, have 4 or 5 carries on the season, 6 carries, 8 carries. But 14 carries, the guy's getting 3 touchdowns on 159 yards.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot. I mean averaging 10 and 1 touchdown every 3.5 carries. That's
ridiculous. And that's not repeatable and not something you can look forward to, and not something you can assume into the stat line. So I find his numbers to actually be a little bit boosted from where I think they should be. And he's extremely talented, and like Mike was saying, he's going to be a wide receiver 1 for that team if he's playing healthy and that injury risk is still staying low. And so right now he's going wide receiver 17 in standard and 35 in PPR. I mean, bump him down just a little bit lower, and I'd totally be on this hype train. Like, if we could just say, like, wide receiver 21, 22, and, in standard, I'd totally be into it.
Personally, I'm staying away from him this year.
I just don't. I think he's valued at higher than he's going to produce, and it's due to a boosted idea of what he's going to give you this season based off what he did last season, and I'm not feeling him. Yeah,
Tyler Lockett goes right behind him in a standard league.
And I take Tyler Lockett over him any day.
All day. You know who's even lower? Oh my goodness, I just saw this. Holy crap, 2 of them that are lower. Robert Woods and Allen Robinson. You can get at wide receiver 21 and 22, which I have.
And I take either one of them over Deebo, especially with that injury, not knowing what's going on week 1 and 2, over Deebo right now. Yep. So Deebo's a hard stay away until his ADP drops to where it really needs to be, because that's all fantasy football is about.
Where would you take him? What round? So he's going
with what's going on right now in his injury and how he finished last year and everything we just said. I don't know, maybe like the 5th or 6th. I'm not taking him in the 3rd. I'm not taking him in the 4th. Mm-hmm. There's too much talent on the board.
I think 6th is where I'm at.
I think the 5th or the 6th, that gives me enough time to fill my roster with some players that will fill that position until I know whether or not he's healthy. And at that point, I can make the decision on, he's taking this slot. Because he's someone that is extremely talented at that receiver position, and he is going to see a lot of opportunity when he's healthy. It's just a question of when.
Right. Definitely. I agree. Yeah, if he hadn't have gotten injured, and if he hadn't have gotten injured the way he did and the injury he had, I'd be all over him where he's going now. But I just don't think I can take him there, especially when you have those other receivers around him that are as talented and proven and more proven. But let's get into the beer of the day. Ooh. It's a good one.
Oh, yeah, Mike's been sipping on it. He made me grab a second can before we get started just so we can make sure to have a backup. So I'm actually letting him get started on it.
I'm digging it. I am digging it. It was a very light beer, like a very, very. When I started sipping on it, it's like super. I guess fluffy is not the best word. But again, we are drinking the Florida Cracker from Cigar City Brewing out of Tampa, Florida. It's a Belgian style white ale. It's brewed with coriander and orange peel. And like I was saying, super fluffy. I felt like I was drinking
really
clouds.
Lightly carbonated. Like, you can tell, obviously it's a beer, so it's going to have that carbonation, but it's not, I hate to say it, but like bursting on the tongue. You guys know that real fresh out of the can Sprite.
Yeah.
Like it hurts. It hurts. You feel those bubbles on your tongue.
Yeah, it burns a little bit. No,
right now this is really smooth. It almost, just kind of flows right on down. It actually kind of reminds me of your average American light beer that slowly turns itself into your nice little Belgian wheat. It starts off so smooth you can't tell if you're drinking, like, I hate to say it, like a Bud Light or something, but as you take the can away from your mouth, the flavor really transforms into something that
orange,
that orange, that earthy tone, the spices, the coriander, and everything kind of like breaks away at that like easy light beer flavor.
It is dry. I will say, after I take a sip, a couple of seconds go away, it is super dry. But that's not a bad thing, Oh
no, I actually like it because it doesn't leave your mouth all like wet and but
saliva-y.
Saliva-y, if that is a correct terminology.
Let us know if that is or not.
People let us know. But it actually is, for feeling so light and tasting so light, it's a 5.5%, so it's your pretty heavy for your standard beer, without getting into your craft brews that can get up to the 10%. But at only an IBU 15, which kind of gives you the explanation on why it's so smooth and so easy to drink, you're not really expecting too much bitterness or anything to cut out your tongue. It's made mainly from unmalted wheats, brewed with that coriander and that orange peel. They do add some lemon and lime essence into the brew as they foam it up. But it starts off super smooth and finishes with a really, really clean, crisp wheat taste.
You make me want to drink another one.
Luckily for you, I got a 6-pack of these. So I'll actually send you home with one so I can have one for myself.
Yes. So like I said, it is from Cigar City Brewing out of Tampa, Florida. They got the name from the 18th century Cowboys of the Florida Prairie. Yee. It's pretty dope.
Yeah. I didn't know Florida had prairies, and I've been here my whole life.
I didn't know they had cowboys. Thought it was a Texas thing.
Hey, we have cows. We've got dairies.
Got cattle.
Yeah.
You think we have prairie dogs? If there's a prairie?
Those are just groundhogs, right? I don't even know.
I don't know. I saw them on Animal Planet one time. It is a year-round beer. We got it at, where did we get it? ABC?
I actually picked this one up at ABC Liquor. This is, I'm going to be honest with everyone, this was actually the first beer I've ever had at a actual brewery.
Oh.
And when I saw it today, I was like, and it was out of state. I wasn't even in Florida when I had it, so it was crazy for me to see that it was out of Tampa, Florida, which is why I picked it up when I was out of state. I forget what state I was in. But so I know that they do sell this at least to a few states in the country. It shouldn't be too crazy to pick up. It should be something you should be able to find pretty close to you. Again, I found it at ABC Liquor, and we're out of Florida, so Tampa's not too far. But Cigar City also makes High Lie, and I know they get pretty far. So
yeah, so the can art's pretty dope. It kind of goes back to that, Florida cracker, the cowboy, 18th century cowboy or whatever. They've got some cattle, bull, or I'm not. My parents would hate me right now because they have a farm, but some cattle, maybe a bull, I don't know. And there's some doves, and then of course the Floridian palm trees to let you know we're in Florida, baby.
Yeah.
So so Cigar, what I thought was pretty neat is that they actually are their philosophy is that they achieve quality by giving the first-rate ingredients. So the best ingredients are the only ingredients that go into brews like this that they brew. They use vegan, it's a vegan beer. They don't use any animal byproduct or anything like that. So I think that's pretty neat, something different.
Yeah, absolutely, and a great tasting, amazing beer. And it makes me feel good about myself now that you told me that, because veganism's not for me, but it's for some people. And I'm glad I can help support people that are into that.
Yep. Say they do have tap rooms on Spruce Street. Tap room is what it's called over in Tampa. That's their original tap room. They also have a downtown tap room, as well as something called Brew Pub in the Tampa airport. Lastly, they are a partner with Canarchy. It's at the Collaborator. in Asheville, North Carolina. It's a restaurant. You can make reservations and stuff like that. But I guess they get together with some breweries, pair beer with food. You can go to
super cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Collaboratoryavl.com. Check that out. That's in Asheville, North Carolina. One other really neat thing that Cigar City Brewing does is I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but it's El Catador Club. It's a barrel-aged beer club. They make barrel-aged beer. You can for the club members and stuff like that. It's a very exclusive club. Check out their site for more information on that. It's cigarcitybrewing.com. John, we're finished.
Yeah, that was our first week.
That was a good one.
I hope you guys really enjoyed the episode today. Just remember if you guys have any fantasy football questions as far as start sits, roster management, trades, anything like that, you can reach us at the Fantasy Tap on Instagram and Twitter. And if you guys want to send in any viewer questions as far as what to do with your teams, it's going to be thefantasytap@gmail.com. Yep. And please send us your beer reviews or any beers you guys would like us to review, local beers near you, or anything like that. Thank you guys for a great week, and we'll see you next week.
We love you guys. I'll see you Sunday. Get in that mock draft.